creating some sparks there as the undercarriage of that car is grinding into the pavement there. The vehicle looking a little bit wobbly there, and he looks like he might be having a hard time controlling the steering there. And the driver is now stepping out of the vehicle, running across the exit lanes, running across the freeway onto the shoulder here, trying to carjack another vehicle, looking for an open door, trying to steal another car in the middle of the freeway. And now an arrest team approaching the suspect, who remains prone out there in the middle of the 5 freeway.
Anyone that is, whether it's the state or whether it's a city or that is claiming this sanctuary status, number one, they are absolutely 100% dishonest, and it is all fear-mongering.
So I was willing to give up whatever might be the tracking of Kamala Harris's particular fondness for nacho cheese Doritos for the sake of getting a big bag of Doritos as I watched the Oscars.
That's the consumer behavior.
And that's right, but here's the thing. At what point do we also uplift and highlight the consumer's right to also expect, and you can debate with me if it should be a right.
Es una responsabilidad ética replantearnos el pasado para transformar las injusticias del presente. Solo así podemos combatir el racismo y el clasismo que se viven actualmente.
Now we're approaching the most important battle of our lives. If you fuck around with us, if you do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
Are you with ACLU? Sir, do you work for ACLU? We've uncovered thousands of contributions. We talked to people in Maryland who told us that they didn't make those donations. Yet your website, ActBlue, listed as the pass-through for this money. Do you work for ActBlue?
Very in-depth tweet, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Congressman.
And all you're seeing right now is the graft, and that's why the left is pitching such a fit, because Elon Musk very bravely has stated there is a paper trail, and it will lead us to where this is. And you know good and well that stuff's going to go right out of the American taxpayer's back pocket, right into the pockets of politicians. In the past, we've seen it go into campaigns. That's been documented through some other funding sources. But now I think you're going to see some people should go to jail, and possibly members of Congress.
Breaking news, former Democratic Representative Katie Porter has announced she's entering the California's governor's race to succeed Gavin Newsom. Last year, Porter finished a distant third in the state's top primary for an open U.S. Senate seat. It was ultimately won by Adam Schiff. And we're still awaiting to hear if former Vice President Kamala Harris will enter the race as well. Her decision is expected.
Maybe we could start off with a little bit of, can you just actually tell us what Tesla Takedown is? Or
Yeah,
it's not Takedown Tesla, it's Tesla Takedown.
Tesla Takedown. Yeah, there's a website called TeslaTakedown.com, which is a website you can go to, get some background on the campaign. And it essentially is a map where anybody in the world can put an action up for targeting Tesla. And so I've been involved in that campaign, and in particular, planning actions in the Seattle area targeting Tesla.
Small shift when you look at it. Trump had lost this state. This was a Democratic state, you can see here, by 0.6 of a point in 2020, 0.6 of a point, and Trump won it by 0.9 of a point. So the swing in this state was only 1.5 points. A lot of Wisconsin didn't really budge, but some places in Wisconsin did, and those are the places to look closely at in this election coming up in a few weeks.
Positive, saying his country is ready to take this step. President Zelensky saying that the ceasefire will begin when Russia accepts this deal. And in a joint statement, the United States says it will immediately lift the pause on intelligence sharing and will resume security assistance to Ukraine. The U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, speaking after that deal was announced.
The president's objective here is, number one, above everything else, he wants the war to end. And I think today Ukraine has taken a concrete step in that regard. We hope the Russians will reciprocate.
In our legislature in Sacramento, kicked me off my elections committee
for fighting for you, the voters, and speaking up on voter ID.
I'm on the website for the state of California to register to vote. On the section where you put in your driver's license, your last four of your social, there's a box underneath each one that says, I don't have one. I don't have one. And then you're allowed to proceed to go to vote. What is the agenda here? Why do we let people register to vote and we don't verify their immigration status? We need to instill confidence in our elections. We need the public to know and trust that when we vote, it's secured and your vote counts equally. This idea.
On this vote, the yeas are 217, the nays are 213. The bill is passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
That funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5 or a little earlier, since there's so much news going on. And I probably won't get to 20% of what I got. Looks like they're going to shut down the Department of Education. Half the employees are getting laid off today, according to reports. They passed the continuing resolution out of the House. Will take 8 Democrats, since Rand Paul said he's a definite no. Thomas Massie, the one Republican in the House, voted against it. One Democrat did. I didn't catch his name, but we will figure it out. So it's 217, 213. Has to have 8 votes of Democrats in the Senate to get through. Still think Thomas Massie's right. I think if Trump and Elon really want Doge to work, let the government partially shut down, then you have authority to go in there and start eliminating non-essential services, as they say. It's not a government shutdown. It is a shutdown of things that don't need to be done. And if there's $1 trillion worth of cuts, then they got full authority. I don't believe any court in the land, and the Supreme Court will most likely back them up on that. If there was no continuing resolution, no budget package, they would have almost carte blanche authority to do that. So I think it's a strategy play, even though it may have some short-term pain, and you may have to endure some bad publicity along the way. In the short term, I think the long term, they could have the cuts done. You won't have to go through this in September. You'll have them in place. Your economy will be turning around by next year when the midterms come up. You'll be gaining seats. I think this is a big strategic error, in my view, by the Trump administration, but we shall see. How she works out, we'll get into that. Maybe a little bit on is Riverside County Board of Supervisors racist. On Women's Day, they had none other than the corrupt, owned by the cartel members, Sheinbaum, the dingbat president of Mexico up there, and they were praising her and all that. And the racist, I believe, comment she made of that. You want Riverside County to go down the tubes, follow the path. Board President Victor Manuel Perez, Jose Medina, Extian Gutierrez, and with an assist from Chuck Washington, Karen's, I'm giving her a little bit of latitude, are taking Riverside County straight down the tubes with their constant stuff of pushing the racism, pushing failure, pushing more government control. The citizens from across the border down there talking about it. We'll maybe touch on a little bit today. Maybe we'll get a little more in-depth in it on Wednesday and Thursday. We'll see how that works out with all the goodies going. Kamala Harris. God, that woman is... I really hope she's drunker than a skunk or on high with her latest little word salad. Because I really almost cannot fathom. We've elected her statewide 5 times. I think twice in San Francisco as district attorney, 5 times statewide. 2010, attorney general. 2014, reelected her attorney general. 2016, elected her senator. She got to be vice president, and we elected her vice president with Joe Biden in 2020. And she actually won the state of California on the presidential run when she was on the top of the ticket. Thank goodness. Thank freaking goodness that the rest of the country prevented us from having the ding-a-ling. Either she's got an IQ of about a minus 147, or she's smoking weed, drinking Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill, or something. I really hope it's the latter, because then she would actually have an excuse for it. Of course, her cohort, psycho chick, Kamala's just a bitch. I don't think Kamala's a psycho chick. Maybe. Probably a little bit. Not anywhere near what Katie Porter is, who just announced today, threw her hat in the ring as for governor of the United States. Former Orange County House of Representatives member, ran for Senate and lost to frickin' Adam Schiff. That's how bad she is. Mind you, and if you don't think, Katie Porter is a 1,947,000% psycho chick. Her ex-husband, she once took a boiling pot of potatoes and dumped the hot scalding water on his head. How she was not in... To me, she should have been in jail for assault. Maybe even manslaughter, attempted manslaughter. I mean, that could kill, depending on how bad you were burnt. In a whole pot, depending how big the pan was, if you were cooking for a lot of people, say everybody's coming up. I think they got 2 or 3 kids. Maybe you're making a whole bunch of mashed potatoes, for the week or so, and you got one of the big pots on there. You dump that over a dude's head or anybody's head, man, that can cause enough burns that it could kill you. But she said she would drop out of the race if Kamala runs it, and I'm almost certain it is. Chad Bianco has some comments on Fox Digital. We'll roll some of those yet today, among some other. Bill Asaley and Carl DeMaio are assemblymen here. Asaley from the Inland Empire. Carl DeMaio down in California introduced a voter ID bill, as much as I would like to see it go through. Unless, now this is one way it could partially or maybe force the hand of it, although I imagine California will do it. I think Trump and Congress can pass a law on the federal elections, president, vice president, U.S. senator, your congressman. I mean, we'll have to get maybe we'll get Asaley in here because he's a lawyer. I'm sure he studied the law on it. If not, he can brush up on it, or we'll get somebody in here. I believe the federal government can come in and say, hey, in all federal national elections, because they can determine that. Now, state offices, local offices, and down then that's whatever jurisdiction. But they can say only paper ballots, same-day voting, whatever it is, November 3rd, 2026, primary, June 5th or whenever it is in 26. Only paper ballot, same day balloting, and you have to request each election if you want an absentee ballot and state a reason why. And that was not too long ago. Because I'm still on the top side of the grass. I remember when I first started voting back in the 80s, if you wanted an absentee ballot, you had to go in and you had to say a reason why. You could not vote on election day on Tuesday, first Tuesday of November, or primary day in June, which is usually the first Tuesday in June, California, or special elections or whatever. Are you out of town? If you were military, you got an absolute, or I think military was the only ones that got carte blanche. They could check a box and they would be in the permanent absentee ballot list until whatever they came back, or unless they got out of the military. But you still had to give your current address or whatever so they could get it to you. Mind you, it was 1980, my first election that I was eligible to vote in. That was the first year that we went 10%, the one where Reagan won the general election presidency. It was the first year we went 10% on absentee ballots. Prior to 1980, we were in single-digit percentages on absentee ballots. Now I believe it's almost 80%. It's close. I'll have to check on it. I believe Riverside County was in there and statewide. You hardly have anyone show up on election day and vote. In fact, they've consolidated most of the precincts down. We used to have precincts, and same thing, precincts. Precincts in your local block. Now, that would force the hands, I believe, in the state of California. So what are they going to say? We're going to have separate precincts for X, Y, and Z? I don't know. We'll have to see if that could work, but I think it could. As a way, that's the only way California is going to do it. Get to that point where we can actually get some honest elections going on. Maybe we'll have to get Greg Langworthy here. He's leading a group here in Riverside County, and they've been on that, kind of picked up where the late Yvette Anthony, she was one of the ones that started championing this many years ago. She recently passed away. But Greg Langworthy and his crew have pretty much picked it up. Maybe we'll get him in the, he was down there at the county board of soups. He's almost there has been there for a couple years now. They're almost at every meeting, outlining, what he sees the potential wrongs, not honest vote count, whatever he's got, his statistics, and they're not disputing him, saying, hey, there's 40,000 out of 700,000 ballots in the November 24 election in Riverside County. Overvotes? If it isn't, then please explain why it's not. Greg and his crew made a mistake, or they didn't read this right, or whatever. Here it is into March, and they're not coming up with any answers, or at least publicly that I know of how to fix this stuff. That should, I believe, be very troubling to almost anyone. I believe we need to get rid of the ballot harvesting, too. That should be a federal deal, too, no ballot harvesting. So, again, I don't see, if the federal government could mandate that, at least on their elections, then the states, any ones that are doing it, Georgia, I know, has been big into that. They've been pruning it back. They don't have, as a nutcase, a legislative part of us, but we shall see. Hopefully, we can make that happen. Well, let's roll off some of the Sheriff Chad stuff since he's up. He was at the Riverside Republican Assembly last night. About 60, 70 people showed up, along with Lori Stone, the chair of the Riverside County Republican Party. And boy, I forgot his name, but from Redlands Tea Party, which was talking about putting initiatives like this on and that. Was a little disappointed we didn't get to be able to ask Lori Stone or Sheriff Chad questions. But hey, they can explain why. He did say he backed up, Sheriff Chad did back up on his previous comments on ABC 7, which we still have on tape, even though they tried deleting them, where he said it was a funding issue why we weren't opening up 3/4 or 1,200 jail beds, a brand new jail space in the Indio jail. He said now it was because we can't staff it. Well, why was it funding 2 months ago when you're talking on ABC and now funding? He said it wasn't funding, it was that. Again, we don't play no favorites on this show. We seek the truth. That's why we're broadcasting. That's why we're on the AM radio. And that's part of the responsibility of covering the news, being on the radio, things like that. You should be at the best of your ability, give it the fair shot. That's why we ask the tough questions. I think that's why a lot of them, including Sheriff Chad, won't come in here. Board of Supervisors and that. But let's see what Sheriff Chad had on Fox News Digital. We go. Maybe. Well, let's see if he will say something. Here we go.
City or that is claiming this sanctuary status. Number one, they are absolutely 100% dishonest, and it is all fear mongering. So,
of that, and we ran that on the intro, I 1,111% agree with Sheriff Chad on that. All that stuff is plain 111% fear mongering. There's no evidence that they are going after. If ICE is going after anyone, and let's cut it down, anyone in this country illegally or unlawfully is subject to deportation. And if you have any empathy for your fellow man, because I don't care if you're a criminal or not, if you are in this country unlawfully or illegally, you are most likely being exploited. You are, as I've said, the 21st century slaves. Look, one of them, maybe we'll dig out the clip somewhere. I don't know if I've got it. But that's why the stock market's going crazy. It's down. Because in service industries, in agriculture, in construction, those industries are nervous because a lot of their employees or people they have been employing are not in this country legally or lawfully. What happened to E-Verify? Where you verified the Social Security number and didn't come back if it wasn't legit. If you put down whatever number, 999-99999 or whatever. I don't know if we've got to that number yet. And it comes back, you're you put down that you're Joe Smith, and that comes back as that's Tyrone Williams or Javier Garcia or something, hey, we got a problem here. Did you willfully? Because when you sign that, you verify your Social Security or your W-9, you're signing under penalty of perjury. So this is where we're at. And like I said, I agree 1,000% with what Sheriff Chad on that. Nobody's going, if you are in this country illegally or unlawfully, you're subject to deportation. And it's a humanitarian thing to do because we don't want them trafficked in labor, being abused, sex trafficked, working for the cartels with the illegal weed factories, the fentanyl, and the whole thing. Again, everybody that hollers about slavery and all this and that and racism and all this, you should be the first ones wanting people in this country unlawfully or legally because they're 98.7% of them are being exploited. They might not be 100% as the slaves in the 17th or 18th or 19th century were, but they're being abused and controlled over this. Here's more from Sheriff Chad.
The reality right now is that the only people that ICE are going after are people who have already been deported for criminal issues. That's it. The lie that they're doing raids and that they're just going through communities, that is an absolute lie spread by activists and dishonest politicians. And it's going to get people hurt because the reality is these people all have federal warrants to be deported. They've already gone through the process. They've already victimized us in the past. They're not here to make a better life for themselves. They were here to victimize us, and a judge has ordered them removed. That's the only people they're going after. 90% of the people that they have taken into custody are those criminals. The other 10%.
So that was even one of Sheriff Chad's former deputies, Yadra Perez, former deputy because she resigned. I think she's still councilwoman of Coachella, which was backed by Riverside Sheriff's Association. Her husband was arrested by ICE because he was on the list that Sheriff Chad's talking about. But there should be no distinction. Of course they're going to go, and they should. Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, Trump, and Trump put out the order, executive order, direction, sure, in their cabinet meetings, hey, this is what we're going to do. Of course you should go after the most dangerous felon, criminals, whatever, first. The only concern I have with what Sheriff Chad said is, well, they're not going block by block to community and this and that. Well, that, I believe, is phase 2 of the operation. Then they're going to get down to people who are in the country unlawfully. Illegally, hardened criminals. Okay, next tier down, then unlawfully. It is not necessarily a crime to be in the country unlawfully, meaning you don't have a green card, you came over illegally, da-da-da-da-da. It is a crime if you've been deported. It is a felony, as far as I know, if you've been deported and you come back into this country without going through the proper channels, which means almost nil that you would get back in. Applying, going through customs, everything else. Legit. So that's a contention of, is Sheriff Chad going to back up ICE or support when Homan, Trump, and Kristi Noem come in here and start running down some of the lower tier offenders in being in the country illegally or unlawfully? More from Sheriff Chad.
Are the people like this who are impeding that arrest, or who are trying to, who are fighting with ICE, or who are, maybe they happen to be in the same, room, the home, they live in the same home, and they've hidden that person from ICE, or they've done something else. But it's 10% have been collateral damage. That's very, very limited, because the only people they're going after are criminals. So these people that are doing this, yes, they are guilty of a crime, and they're going to find themselves being arrested themselves. It's going to cause a confrontation with these federal law enforcement officers, and people are going to get hurt. Law enforcement is going to get hurt. People are going to get hurt, and more than likely, in some situations, killed. And it is absolutely ridiculous. The only people that are being deported right now are criminals who are victimizing us.
Which just seems to be pretty much the case. So what comes down to, and I agree, that's what passing these resolutions at the crime syndicate, which will be there in about an hour. That's known as Moreno Valley Unified School District. The city of Moreno Valley's done it. The the county of Riverside has passed the same thing. And Sheriff Chad did put a written statement in when they did the resolution. And they were trying to come back with, we're going to give money. You're going to give our tax dollars, our hard-earned tax dollars, that we surrender to them at the point of a gun. And here you go. Now, they haven't done that. There's been 2 meetings now since they passed the resolution. They haven't got guts enough to bring it back. Well, maybe, 2. Maybe 3. No, I think it's 2. Yeah, February 25th and today. Where is it? If this is where you're at, and this is what Sheriff Chad is warning about. You start putting this in, you start encouraging or getting law enforcement to know your rights, like the big deal they had at Moreno Valley at the crime syndicate, which was mostly for the adults. Oh, we're protecting children and all that. Bull hockey. A little bit more from Sheriff Chad. Here we go.
And so to say that for all of these people, they don't even really know what they're protesting. They're protesting because they're believing dishonest politicians, and they're believing these activist groups. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. The media should be reporting the truth. The politicians should be telling the truth. But we know that the only way for these politicians to win is to create this divide. There has to be this emotional divide that separates us with race and with sex and all of these different things. And they believe that works, and it truly doesn't. And right now, it's just placing people in danger.
1000% agree with what Sheriff Chad said there. All this whole stirring up the racism is not healing the community. In fact, it is making the community more contentious. And again, I'm not a law enforcement personnel or professional. Sheriff Chad spent his whole career, practically, as far as I know, in law enforcement. He's telling you this because this, again, set the stage well, yesterday, I think it was yesterday, but we'll get to this in, well, maybe a little bit today. Second District Supervisor Karen Spiegel pointed out that, and I believe it was yesterday, but she said today, won't quibble over a day. 5 years ago, World Health Organization declared the scandemic, the COVID con, and the whole deal with that. Second part is, I think, is what International Women's Day or month. So they played, and maybe we'll get into more of it in this, but we rolled this on the open. The one they featured was Claudia Sheinbaum, El Presidente of Mexico. As I said, that corrupt cartel running 150 years ago, we kicked the Spaniards out of there and out of California. We kept California. We gave Mexico back to them. And they turned some of the greatest terrain in the entire world into an asshole. And 90% of their citizens are in bondage, working for the cartels, afraid to do anything, poorer than dirt. And you don't get elected El Presidente of Mexico unless you're working for the cartels. That's part of what Trump's talking about, going out there and clearing out the cartels. If we do that, maybe Mexico, which is what people, if you make Mexico, the South American countries, Ecuador and Guatemala and all that, why don't you make these countries economically viable, where opportunity is at, where people don't have to leave? Much healthier, tolerable, humane system than what we're doing now. But you go elect a San Francisco liberal, was raised in San Francisco, Sheinbaum, and then she's going to lecture us with this crap. And this was played at the County Board of Supervisors, and we're going to do the whole thing. Let's see where we got it on mute. Yeah, I'll try to see if we can read it. Oh yeah, that we're real change of consciousness. It's an ethical responsibility of the past and a transformation of injustices of the present. The only way we can combat racism is, and this is key, and is classism that we live today. Your County Board of Supervisors. JVW, CEO. You're not saying anything about this. If you don't say anything, JVW's attorney knows the definition of a tacit agreement. If you don't say anything about it, you're agreeing with what has been said. So this is what they're going to put up. And ran it. As you can hear, let's unmute it. En Spanish.
Actualmente. La transformación tiene que ser de raíz y por ello hay que recolocar la mirada histórica.
Yes, the historical, the whole thing. Yeah, what, America's a racist country. We're doing this. Bunch of white hillbilly, yada, yada, yada. This is what they're playing at the Riverside County Board of Supervisors today. I haven't heard the closing comments after. I addressed this in the COVID situation. We'll get to that. And maybe this a little bit more too. I just wanted to give you a flavor because we put this in the, as they say, cold open of the events of the day. We'll see how this all works out. Got to get to the Kamala Harris deal. As I said, I really hope that it's because she has a substance addictive something, whether it's drugs, weed, alcohol, I don't know. And I really do. I hope she runs for governor. Because I think Kamala Harris, a psycho chick as Katie Porter is. It'd be a close, probably match. Kamala Harris is the one person, as Sheriff Chad Bianco, Rick Grinnell, Nicole Shanahan, Rick Caruso, or whoever jumps in there, can actually beat. Katie Porter maybe as much. I don't think she's going to get any traction. She's not in office anymore. She was able to raise money when she ran for Senate in 24 and lost in the primary, didn't get in the top two. It would have been, not that I didn't want to see Garvey in there because it proved my point of him getting more percentage over Trump. How you got to work California with subject for a different day. It would have been though interesting to see Schiff versus Porter. I think Porter might have. I'd if I was laying money down, I'd have laid it on Porter over Schiff. As psycho chick as Katie Porter is, I even think Kamala actually gets worse. She actually said this recently.
I was willing to give up whatever might be the tracking of Kamala Harris's particular fondness for nacho cheese Doritos for the sake of getting a big bag of Doritos as I watched the Oscars.
On top of the weird delivery, and I could even get that if you're having a conversation about this, this is where it gets weird. How she weaves this in, again, a 3-year-old. Well, I can guarantee you, at 3 years old, I could have walked circles around this chick at 3 years old. Holy cow.
That's the consumer behavior.
And that's right, but here's the thing. At what point do we also uplift and highlight the consumer's right to also expect, and you can debate with me if it should be a right, I think it should, to expect that the innovation would also be weighted in terms of solving their everyday problems.
Again, you could take Fritz the cat, and I think beat Kamala Harris 10 ways to Sunday, even in California. Could you imagine her on the debate stage? She's lived a charmed life up until the President of the United States. Her 2 runs for Attorney General, her election, as U.S. Senator, the stolen election in 2020, where she was on the second ticket of that. She lived about as charmed an electoral life until 2024, when we finally got to see the real Kamala Harris. And that was no joke. And it is no joke. She would have never had a political district attorney, anything career if she wasn't under the desk at Willie Brown's office that got her started. Because there is no possible way, based on her intellect and talent, she could have even been elected District Attorney of San Francisco, much less Attorney General of California, U.S. Senator, Vice President. Hopefully we broke that chain in 2024. But I think her ego, putting it mildly, she can't take being defeated. She can't take the presidential defeating. I think in her mind, she really thought she could win. In her mind, she was going to dust Donald J. Trump. No matter what you think, you can hate every policy of Donald J. Trump. He's a very intelligent person. All the way around. Here we go.
Which are beyond my craving for Doritos, but about whatever, and I know the work is happening around, the scientific discoveries, for example, to cure long-standing diseases. But I'm going to throw out another one. And you all, again, please get back to me any information you have. I would love it if there would be an investment of resources in solving the affordable housing issue in America. Like, help me with that.
How she weaves down that highway. Solving the housing crisis. And this came up at the county of Riverside. Speaker after speaker. Various issues come up there and said, hey, we can't afford housing. And you know what your county board of supervisors says? Oh, trust the government. We're going to fix it for you. We're going to make you more dependent on government housing. Just like healthcare, everything else, we've seen how that turns out. You get screwed. A very, very few percentage of wealthy oligarchs are going to make 98.7% of the money, and you're going to live in a hovel. You're going to get less health care. Goes back to the COVID con and everything else.
Be weighted in terms of solving.
How, besides being a minor miracle, that she got elected? Something else. As we said, the continuing resolution passed, which means, at least in the House, they passed a resolution 217 to 213. All but one Republican voted for it. That was Tom Massey, which Trump said he was going to primary. Bad decision. It's a very bad move to do that. I posted that on IE Newswire when you made the tweet out. Again, we call it as we see them here. One Democrat actually voted for the CR, so it was 217, 213. It goes to the Senate. But I believe, and I said it in the earlier, I believe Trump, ultimately, he's the one that's making the call. He's making a very bad strategic decision. Because if you have no continuing resolution, you have no budget, The government cannot borrow anymore. They cannot overspend more than's coming in. It's not a government shutdown. It's a partial government shutdown. Unless you know of somebody else, and I know of no. The Supreme Court can go on like they're doing now, ruling against Trump. Well, you can't cut this because Congress already appropriate. No, go through all the machinations through all the courts, and the Supreme Court rejected one of them. Now, it wasn't clear whether they were just doing it on the particulars of that or making a general statement, but that's going to be doing with Doge and everything else in this, and that's what they said, oh, let us work on this until September and all that. No, bad strategy call. Because if there was no continuing resolution, maybe it'll get stopped in the Senate because they're going to have 8 Democrats to go with it. Maybe that deal's already been cut. Who knows? We'll find out here in a few days. I think, is it the 10th? Or is it the 14th? I think is a drop dead deadline. So what, in 3 days? So we'll see if they get 8 Democrats, because Rand Paul has said, just like Thomas Massie, I'm not going for a CR. Continuing resolution means you keep till the end of the year the Harris-Biden regime spending that we're under now and the $2 trillion deficits and all that. They could, no continuing resolution. Elon Musk, Doge, Trump, all the agencies shut down the Department of Education, which has been talked about. If the reports have been coming out, half the employees right now are going to be laid off from the Department of Education. With no continuing resolution, I don't think a court's got a leg to stand on. I think the Supreme Court will back him up. Hey, Trump's got 100% authority. If he doesn't have the cash to keep the operations of the Harris-Biden budget, he has not only the right, the sworn duty that he took the oath of under the Constitution to be the chief executive officer, president of the United States. He has the authority to execute, say, okay, we don't have enough money to do this, cut this, do that, boom, 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 boom. Then when you get to September, where you're doing your budget, all these things are all out of the way. Plus, the economy's had time 6 months earlier to readjust, reset, be on a path to get to 2026 where we've flushed all this out. The deregulation was stopping the government of doing that. Now you're on the work. Kicking the can down the road is not working. I believe that's what the whole Musk cabinet deal was going. Still, a lot of the ones of the establishment types were still trying to hold on to this. Continuing resolution stuff. Think Elon. I really think Russ Vogt was probably arguing against it, but hey, he's just Office of Management and Budget, which basically does that. And is the one that took over his from the Center for Renewing America, which is the organization he ran before he came back to Office of Management and Budget under the Trump administration. Well, they were trying to make the half-baked case of, well, why the CR was good. They were saying it on Bannon's show, or he was stating it on Bannon's show, but he said, hey, we win either way, even if no continuing resolution is not passed. Which, unless they have a deal cut, it still may not go through the Senate. Because again, with the Senate rules and cloture, they've got to have 60 of the 100 to bring it to the floor to a vote. Once it gets to the floor vote at the Senate, it only has to pass majority vote, 51-49, or however many members are voting. You know, somebody's absent or whatever. So it has to have a majority vote, or if it's a tie, JD gets to break it. And they're already down one, Rand Paul, Republican, down one Republican. So that means he said he's flat no like Tom Massie. Must be some good water or something in Kentucky. So they got to have 8 Democrats now to bring closure. And as Trump was putting out and Tom Massey put out, where Trump's saying, oh, you voted for the Biden CR, da-da-da. No, he voted for the Kevin McCarthy, Republican Speaker of the House bill, that was cutting the budget and doing that, which eventually didn't go through, but he voted for that CR. He didn't vote for the CRs, like Rand Paul stating he's not going to. And that's, you got to accept a little bit of that from Trump. He weaves down these paths of that. But like I say, I think, my opinion, I posted last night, just like with where I disagree with anyone. Sheriff Chad, even though I agree with most of the policies he puts on, if I see anyone, and even like with this with Trump, if you're not getting the job done or you're doing a strategy I see better, I'm going to call it out. Doesn't mean I'm suddenly jumping off the Trump train or anything. We'll see how it works out. Maybe Trump's way will work out by the end of the year and they'll get a budget and all that. I think it would have way speeded up the process. We would have been in much better shape coming into 26. We'd have flushed out all inconsistencies. The market would be doing that. Like I said, one of businesses all across the board, they're reporting it all over. They're bringing back or looking at ways to bring back manufacturing and jobs back to America because of the tariff deal. We get rid of government employees, transition them into these new jobs coming back in the private sector. Man, you're going to see a renaissance, like Trump said on the plane, which I agree with him. So you're going to be so wealthy, you won't know what to do with all the money. Again, that's a lot of Trump hyperbole. But there's a lot of truth in it, too. If you look at Argentina with Milei, done exactly, or these same things, fired a bunch of government employees, got the private sector working, voila, here we go. We're rocking and rolling. So that's where we're at. That's part and parcel.
I'm here, Roy. We're about 1 minute out.
You got it. It's going to be one heck of a ride here. But again, I think Trump's making a mistake not doing a partial government shutdown and then doing the cuts now, getting them out of the way. That way, your September deal is going to be a lot easier. But we'll see.
30 seconds.
I don't think I've ever been wrong before, but this may be the first time. Maybe Trump will prove me wrong. We'll see. But hey, it's gonna work out one way or the other. Just I think it's a better shot to do that. We'll pick it up on the Mighty Met 1490.
Here we go. 10 seconds.
Sean said, to support America. PatriotSwitch.com.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or...
That funky soul-eye guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join our vast video audience in the Evil FB Network, Rumble, X. I even think we're back on YouTube. The usual deal on YouTube is we're off for 3 months and they put us on a month. But we like to irritate them of anything else. I think most of the cyber attacks are back on Rumble. We're back on X, even back on YouTube. Facebook never suffered the attack. That's kind of strange. We'll see where it all comes out. I think it was China hooking up with coming through Ukraine is something. This whole geopolitical stuff is very interesting. We had in the cold open. Marco Rubio announced it. They have a peace deal, ceasefire. Zelensky's agreeing to it. The United States is agreeing to it. It's in Putin's court. Now, I will say, if this would be my one way I would support arming Ukraine. If Putin doesn't accept the ceasefire, then that scrambles the cards a lot. I ain't saying I would be for putting U.S. troops in or that, but that's pause for a deal. Zelensky's agreed to the ceasefire of the terms set forth by the United States. So now it's in Putin's camp. Let's see how that rocks and rolls. Continuing resolution passed the House. 217, 213, all the Republicans voted for it, except one, Tom Massey. All the Democrats voted against it, except one. I don't have their name, but we'll find it out. Maybe we'll have it tomorrow. And again, like I said earlier, I believe Trump should have let the partial shutdown of the government. I think that would give Elon Musk, Doge, and the department heads, which hopefully by tonight, half the Department of Education is going to be laid off. Then you don't have to worry about courts or anything, because what court is going to say, well, you've got to pay them. Well, we don't have any money to pay them. Continuing resolution means we can borrow more money to finance the $2 trillion debt of the last Harris-Biden regime's budget. My contention is you do it now, you get it done early with the no continuing resolution. Your income has to match your expenses, so you got to cut out that $2 trillion worth. So you can say, hey, no high-speed rail in California. We're laying off 90% of the people in the Department of Education. Da-da-da-da, boom, 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 on down the list. IRS agents, we're laying off 90% of you. We're canceling this contract. We can't pay this. Yada, yada, yada. You can get $1 trillion worth of cuts before September. You can let the economy adjust, and there's going to be some pitfalls in that. But you let the economy adjust to September, then when the new budget comes in, you've already got that in place, or you're at least halfway or plus there. Then it's get the rest of it done. Maybe a 2-year budget that gets you to a balanced budget. The economy's readjusted, working fine. If this whole tariff deal's working like it said, and like many, just heard John Thomas, he's saying the same thing. He was on earlier, not on my show, but somewhere else. He works with a lot of international clients. They're saying, hey, we're figuring out with these tariffs how to get manufacturing and jobs back in and put people to work. We can put the people to work that are in the government and the private sector. We're all going to be much better off. As Trump said on the plane the other day, put all the pieces together, we will be more wealthy. I mean, maybe, and again, it's Trump hyperbole. You are going to have a lot more money, maybe not as much as you don't know what to do with it, but you're going to be a lot better off. I think waiting till September, trying to do this, yeah, you're going to take a short-term hit. You're going to have to suffer with the, they shut down Yellowstone Park or whatever. You can't tour the Washington Monument. People are not going to die if they don't do that. I guarantee you education will start turning around if we get rid of the Department of Education. And a lot of other USAID, whatever all these are done. We don't have the money to pay for that prioritizing. Again, I don't think there's a court in America that's going to be, you might have a ding-dong judge, I'm sure, that'll try to stop it. The Supreme Court will step in and says, hey, Trump's duly elected executive, swore an oath to the Constitution. He doesn't have the money to pay this, that, and that. He's got to make the choices. He's the one in charge. Executive branch. That's our Constitution. Deal with it. I want to get back to some of the things, and we'll deal with more of the Shine Bomb and the whole Mexico. We want to turn Riverside County in the United States into Mexico that went on today, the County Board of Supervisors. Well, you know, maybe tomorrow or probably Thursday. But as I said, Karen Spiegel, Supervisor 2nd District, Corona, said, you know, this is the 5th anniversary. I think it was yesterday, but maybe it's today. Ain't going to quibble over a date. 5 years since the declaration of the scandemic, the COVID-con. And as Karen said, no more effect in Riverside County is what happened at the Board of Supervisors. And I said, when is the Board of Supervisors, the public safety personnel, the medical professionals that came up there, and I'm giving them the benefit of doubt, something they said was correct. 98.7% of everything they told us was BS. Oh, you take the shot, you won't get COVID. Oh, you should take the shot, you won't get it. You take the booster, you won't get it again. Oh, you won't infect anybody. Oh, 6-foot distancing, social distancing, you won't infect them. If you go to grandma's house, you might kill her. You come in to see your dying parent in the hospital, one of the most absurd things. Oh, you're going to kill him. And the whole mask fiasco. Everything they said they were following the science, we said where? Every scientific, everything we knew up to that point 5 years ago today was 180-degree opposite of what they were telling us. And they kept insisting it. And they damaged, like I said, on Women's Day, and you're doing this, and you're trotting out that egregious San Francisco ding-dong who's now entrusted and was put in by the Mexican cartels down there and telling us what a bunch of evil people we are. And again, we bailed Mexico's ass out 150 years ago because they called us in because the Spaniards, remember the war? Mexican-Spaniard War, because they were kicking their ass and they were suppressing them. We said, okay, we'll take California, you can have Mexico back. And they made an S-hole some of the most productive farmland, scenic, as California and Mexico combined. Some of the best climate, everything. They turned it into a drug-controlled, cartel-ridden, totalitarian dictatorship. Not even that. A dictator. A terrorist-run organization. And you're putting that up as the women we should all follow. And what you did, you crushed women's kids. Ask them, they'll tell you they're their kids. You killed their education. California stayed closed the longest 2 years of the schools. And like I said, my conversation with C.J. Johnson, board member, still is, here in Moreno Valley School District, known as the Crime Syndicate, said, well, the reason we were doing this because the county was telling us this and that. And everybody was passing the buck in authority. Karen said it. We were, federal government, state, we had more effect on your life during the COVID con than anybody else. And you damaged the women's kids' future. Damage your education. Damage your future earnings. Damage their intelligence, their development, their health. Even down to recommending kids get the vaccine, which is probably the most criminal thing of all. Like Pat Soon-Shiong, one of the most premier multi-billionaire, holds patents on all sorts of drugs and this and treatments and everything, owns the LA Times and the part of the Lakers, said, we're just figuring out, or we're just starting to discover the amount of damage. And he said, I personally told them, at least from the tweets I'm reading from him, hey, what the hell's going on? You're going down the wrong road. This is not the science, and they just shut up. Pat Soon-Shiong, one of the most premier doctors in the history, cancer researchers, whatever, in the history of the frickin' world. But it was us, the unclean, the unvaccinated, you know, the lepers out here is going to kill everybody. Had to sit in there and go to the Board of Supervisors in their meeting and then be interrogated by Shad's deputies. Where you're going, well, you got to wear a mask coming in here. I said, what statute are you going to do? What statute law are you quoting? Because here it is. It's a recommendation. It's a guide. It's nothing. You have no authority to make us wear a mask coming in here. I'm not disturbing the peace or anything else. You're arresting me. I want to know what charges are you arresting me on? Because I'm going in. I'm going in. You're either arresting me or not, and you better have a darn good reason why. Because they said there's about 150 Temecula psycho chicks out here that you're going to arrest all of them because they're coming in. We had to get to that point. And we had to stand our ground against them, practically everyone down at the County Board of Supervisors. Jeff Hewitt at the time was the only one, supervisor then, that was semi-sticking up for us. And of course the establishment, Riverside Sheriff's Association, and that, the oligarchs down there couldn't stand that. They had to use lawfare, my opinion, everything else to get him out of there, because we cannot have. They do not want a day of joy in your life. They want to take all the fun out of it. And they don't care if they got to crush you, if they got to shorten your lifespan, if they got to dumb down your kids. Like I say, you have 3 supervisors up there. You got 2 things in common. Victor Manuel Perez, Jose Medina, and Extian Gutierrez. And as I stated down there today, you both were legislators, and you both were teachers during this whole time of COVID and the destruction of the education in the state of California, and the dumbing down of kids. The kids that you're trying to celebrate the woman of all that and all this, and you're giving out the awards and all that. Well, you're putting their health in danger, their freedom in danger, their prosperity in danger, their happiness in danger, their kids in danger, and you're enslaving their kids as they know. Look at every survey. That's why 45 and under are turning MAGA. And the future they can see is not going to be as bright as their parents or grandparents, mainly because of government policy. It's down there. Housing. Many people were down there talking about the housing, the high cost of it. %98 of why housing is so expensive in California is government stupid, idiotic rules and regulations. 1000%. Again, come in the seat, sit here. I will give you as much time as you want to prove me wrong. Bring them all. I'd love to have Jose Medina, Victor Manuel Perez, Extin Gutierrez. Bring little Stevie Hernandez with you too, or whomever. Guys with your PhDs and your titles, Assembly Speaker, and board chairperson of the Board of Supervisors, and I got elected. You got elected. You can't answer Greg Langworthy and his crews of how is there more votes counted or potential votes counted than what was on there? Maybe you've been elected, but were you elected legitimately? Hopefully we'll get some traction. I know Bill Asaley, we ran it earlier, Bill Asaley from here in the Inland Empire, Carl DeMaio from down San Diego. Bill in his second term, Carl's a rookie, just elected in 24. Put in a bill to get our elections out. Well, we know about how much chance that has passing in California. But maybe if Trump, and that's why I say let's get this other stuff out of the way. If we had the budget thing down and all that, economy turning around, easier time in September, then we could work on this elections deal. So we have it in place for 26. Again, my proposal is federal elections, same day voting. You request an absentee ballot and you have to have a reason. Paper ballots counted in a local precinct. Would instill confidence that, yeah, you might have been elected, but were you elected legitimately? Riverside County, we go back to 2005 and a whole deal of that. So Riverside County is probably number 2 to Cook County, Illinois, which is Chicago, in election fraud. That was, I think, by black box voting back in then of what we were doing with that. And again, like the judge said, well, it appears the elections were phonier than the $3 bill, but we're not going to do anything because they're already over. Well, maybe we'll fix it the next time. We did get paper ballots. We elected Deborah Bowen, Democrat, Secretary of State, who put in paper ballots, and now we've done paper ballots back to the precincts. We actually did make some headway. We've done flush that down the toilet and more. Hopefully more people are paying, which they are. More people are paying attention. We need to get that army back like we had during COVID back down at Riverside County and in our local, like at the Crime Syndicate. She'll be attending here in a few minutes. And everything else. We're just in the very beginnings of this. We'll see if the continuing resolution gets through the Senate in the next couple of days. If it doesn't, I think the 14th. That could shift. I mean, you don't know exactly when the money's going to run out. They got to get 8 senators on the Democratic side to go with it. It will be some interesting another couple of days. They got 50% of it done, the establishment of that. But like I said, I think if we do a partial government shutdown, not enough money's coming in, it's going to speed the Doge, Elon Musk, department heads, closing down the Department of Education, and all this other. Maybe start getting a lot of this military spending and get down to defense spending. That's a big chunk of the crack. You know, Social Security fraud, we didn't get to Act Blue and all that stuff that's been pilfered off. It's been a maze. You know, and I get it, we didn't get us in this mess overnight. We're not going to get out, but as I've said, that's why I think let the continuing resolution die in the Senate. Let's get down to business. Let's clean it out, get through the bad part. Yeah, the bad publicity and all that and the whining and crying. By September, when things are starting to cook, everybody will be forgotten about that. You don't want to have that going into 26, into the midterms. Then we could be in some real trouble. As you know, I've been talking about standing up for our country, doing something. These big box stores stayed open while the little guys closed. Will our voices be heard? Does voting with our dollars work? PatriotSwitch.com gives patriots the power to walk away from the big box stores forever. Stop supporting the enemies of freedom now. That's why PatriotSwitch.com was created, for those who support America. PatriotSwitch.com. Is your car doing the hucklebuck and afraid you will be stuck? Well, head on down to Toyota of San Bernardino, Nissan of San Bernardino, Subaru of San Bernardino, in the San Bernardino Auto Mall, and catch a Camry, look ravishing in a Rogue, or be styling in a Subaru. Don't forget I-10 Toyota in Indio for those of you in the lower desert. You deserve to be the happiest human on the planet. So head on down to one of these 4 great dealerships for the car of your dreams. Spread the word. IE Newswire is now on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. on Rumble and KMET 1490 AM, 5:30 to 6 p.m. Join all the cool kids who want an eclectic look at the news without all the filters of the evil scoundrels of social media and the despicable dorks of the dominant press. Don't bumble and stumble. Subscribe to IE Newswire on Rumble and roll with the best hillbilly hoedown around. That's it. If you want to buy American, go to PatriotSwitch.com. If you need a new Subaru or Toyota, go to Winnicliff Cummings. Great dealerships at San Bernardino Auto Mall at the 10 and 215 freeways. So forget I-10 Toyota down in the lower desert. Man, it'll be fun. We're just getting in the beginning stages. Everything's not going to work perfectly. We've all got our opinions on it. We'll all see how. I'm confident this. It's all going to work out in the end. With the teams and stuff and the attention we've got and the American people en masse coming around to, hey, we're going to finally start looking at dealing with the reality of the situation. I'm very confident, as confident as I have ever been, that we're actually going to make some real, definitive, concrete process of making all of our lives not only better now, in the future, and in future generations, and that we should all be happy for. That'll do it for today. As we usually say at this time, mandatory you're back here 23 hours wide to hear the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya.
The proceeding was a paid.
All right, right. What did you think about that Jeffries thing? Could you imagine that?
Oh.
My God, man! I swear to God, dude.
Hey, there's craziness going on, just like the Kamala deal. That was the worst.
Oh Jesus, man! I swear to God.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm glad it's happening because man, they're exposing what they are.
Yeah, they're digging their own graves is what they're doing. But all right, well, hopefully I'll see you Friday. Knock on wood.
You got it.
Bye now.
Bye.